Today, I'd like to clear up some confusion about introversion and shyness, because they're not the same thing. First of all, introvert. What's an introvert? Well, there are two personality types. You can be an introvert or you can be an extrovert. And it's not a black and white thing, it's a continuum. There's, let's call it an extreme introversion over here, and extreme extrovert over here. I'll give you an example. I used to work with a woman who described herself as an extreme extrovert. She loved working with people. She didn't want to work on her own. She always wanted to work in teams. She liked to have lots of interaction, lots of conversations. She liked attending meetings. She lived at home with, 4 or 5 different roommates. She had house guests all the time. She had dinner parties. She was off from one event to the other. Early morning meetings, late night meetings. She always was around with people. She just didn't like to even be on her own at all. Now, just listening to her describe her life made me feel stressed, because as an introvert, when I'm around people for a long time, it drains my energy and I need to go off and be by myself for a while in order to recover. Extroverts gain energy from being around people, whereas introverts, it takes energy to be around people and they need to be on their own in order to recharge. And like I said, it can be on a continuum. You can be an extreme extrovert or an extreme introvert, or you can be somewhere in the middle. The other thing that distinguishes introverts and extroverts is that introverts need to think over their thoughts first before they speak, whereas extroverts, as my friend at work would tell me, she says, if I'm not talking, then I'm not thinking. She needs to process her thoughts out loud in order to figure out what it is that she's thinking. Whereas myself, as an introvert, I need to think things through first before I say anything. So those are the differences between an introvert and an extrovert. And here's the thing. If you're at a social event and you're having a chat with somebody, it's extremely hard to actually tell whether they're an introvert or an extrovert. Because just because you're an introvert doesn't mean that you're shy or you're fearful or you don't have any good social skills. You can be an introvert and be all of that too. The difference is shyness. If you say, I know the introverts are all around the room. They're the ones that stand on the outside and they won't make eye contact with you and they give you this deer in the headlights look if you approach them. They're shy people, and shy is different. And once again, that runs on a continuum too, from being totally fearless to being extremely shy. Extremely shy, having social anxiety, actually being afraid of people. So those people who are either not attending the event at all or who are looking uncomfortable on the outsides, they're more likely to be shy than introverts. Now they could be introverts, but they could also be extroverts. As you see, I've divided this into 4 different quadrants here. So you have, for example, up here, you have fearless extroverts. And I can just about guarantee that if you're watching this video, you are probably not one of them. Because the fearless extroverts are out there mingling with people. They love being around people, they're not afraid of people. Nothing's more fun than going out and meeting new people. Now, shy introverts, this is where I was for a long time. Not only did being around people drain my energy, but I was also fearful and anxious, to the point, at the extreme end of the continuum, where I was afraid to leave my house. I had stayed in my house for about 2 years. I didn't venture outside. I was so afraid. I would have panic attacks. This caused me to have a panic attack in a grocery store and have to leave my groceries behind and rush home. It caused me to have a job interview lined up, to get all dressed up, to get my resume, to get in the car, to drive there, only to turn around without ever going into the building because I was too nervous to actually face that. All the way to being relatively fearless, where now especially if I know people, I can go to an event and I can talk to people and I can be quite animated, to the point where I've had people say to me, I can't believe that you're an introvert. They, you know, snort coffee out of their nose when I say that I'm an introvert, because I'm perky and social when I'm around them. But once again, they're confusing being an introvert with being shy. I used to be shy. I'm still an introvert, but I can be social. And fearless introverts can be quite social. And you wouldn't, like I said, you wouldn't know the difference if you met them at a cocktail party. They socially adept, they can make conversation, they have good social skills, they're good listeners, they're totally comfortable with people. The only difference is that being around people for a long time can leave them drained. So they might make decisions like only staying in an event for a short period of time, or only attending so many events a week in order to manage their energy. Whereas shy people might avoid events entirely just because they're afraid and they're anxious and they're too nervous to go. Now, you can actually have shy extroverts. Now, shy extroverts might avoid social situations. They might have a smaller group of friends than maybe that they might like in an ideal world. And a lot of people who claim that they used to be introverts, but then they became extroverts, are probably extroverts all along, but what they did was overcome their shyness. So once they got over their shyness and their fear of people and their social anxiety, then they were able to be their extroverted selves and go out and spend a lot of time with people. So quite often, introverts and shy people are considered one and the same because they have similar characteristics. They might both say no thank you to a social event, but the difference is the reasons for doing so. An introvert who doesn't go to a social event is doing so because they're managing their energy. They can only handle so much, and being at social events can drain them. So they may choose not to go because they don't have the energy for it. Whereas a shy person may choose not to go because they're nervous, because they feel panicky and shy, and they don't want to go because they lack the courage.